I am feeling well and truly stuck. Actually, if I'm honest, I'm utterly terrified. It's 2 a.m. I'm inside a tent. I'm on my own. It's dark. I need a wee. It seemed like hours of risk assessing and crossing my legs. But what would I find? Who would be out there? How fast could I run? Can't I just wait until the morning? How many times have you felt stuck like this? Frozen with fear, unable to move, unable to act. You may have avoided the problem altogether. You've just found something else to do instead. This is a common reaction to feeling afraid, and the 4 stages are freeze, fight, flight, or fright. We freeze while we consider our choices, and our choices to either fight and push through the fear, or flight, meaning that we're going to run away and avoid the fear. The last one, fright, is a feeling of complete overwhelm where we haven't actually dealt with the fear, and the state of not doing anything about it has left us feeling totally hopeless and possibly quite down in ourselves as well. Walking England's longest national trail at 630 miles, the South West Coast Path was a big deal for me. I had just turned 40 and already I was doing something that totally put me out of my comfort zone. I'd wanted to walk this path for over 15 years but had never thought myself capable, and I felt fearful of doing it. Or perhaps I was fearful of doing it and failing. The point is, what I had previously avoided, I now had plucked up the courage to head off and do, to mark my 40th birthday. The challenge tested me on every level, and I decided to walk it solo because I knew it would be a difficult thing for me to go alone over 47 days. I opted to take a tent and camp as much as possible. I had to cross many rivers, but one of them, the River was a monster in my head. It filled my waking dreams as well as my nightmares. That and solo wild camping. I simply never believed I was capable. Let me tell you what happened with the River I arrived at the estuary 7 or so hours before the next low tide. You can only cross 2 hours either side of low tide, and obviously there are only 2 opportunities to cross each day, with the morning tide and the evening tide. You have to wade from the beach across to a slipway on the other side, and it's pretty wide. I think I worked out it's about half a mile, just under half a mile. 3 other people arrived with me at the same time, and actually I was quite grateful that they were there as well, that I could cross the river with them. We all waited on the beach for the 7 hours. We lit a fire on the beach to dry our socks off, and we just sat chatting to pass the time. By 9:30 in the evening, we thought the tide was low enough for us to go. Bearing in mind it's summer, it's August, and the nights are still quite light at this time. It was just beginning to become twilight. I took a deep breath and stepped into the water. Having taken my boots off beforehand, strapped them to my rucksack, and I was wearing waterproof sandals. And as I waded deeper and deeper, I was shocked at how fast that current was. My heart banged in my chest, and I kept digging my poles in deeper and hoping in my heart that I wasn't going to get washed away with the ebbing tide, because that's what I had dreamt was going to happen. But I could feel the strength of the current tugging and pulling at me. And as the light was fading fast, it was important not to lose sight of that slipway over the other side of the estuary. It was a slow process, But finally I reached the other side and I smiled. It's a known fact that when you wade the Erne, you can expect to go in up to your knees. But I'll tell you something, by the time I reached the other side, my knickers were wet. So either it was much deeper than we'd expected, or I am incredibly short. It took us 40 minutes to do the crossing, and by the time we reached the far bank, it was actually dark. But you know, that feeling of satisfaction when you've achieved something really difficult, or something you previously thought was impossible, I felt that feeling of elation. I skipped up the hill singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I'm not going to do an impression of that for you now, I'm sure you can guess. And I counted 6 glowworms in the dark along the way, and it felt utterly amazing. Why am I telling you this? Because the experience of walking the Southwest Coast Path changed my life. It was the start of a new life and a new me. And I didn't know it back then, but I found myself more confident and more able to cope with tricky situations in my daily life outside of adventure. So the following year, I decided to go off and walk the Wales Coast Path with 2 of the friends that I'd met on the Southwest Coast Path. The Wales Coast Path is 870 miles, it's longer. I camped every night for 43 days, and actually it was shorter, I think, because I was more experienced by this point. It wasn't until nearing the end of the walk that I realised I'd become the first woman to walk the path. That felt good. I'd still faced fears and dealt with issues along the path, dealing with blisters and foot pain and my fear of heights. They were some of the many problems that I faced daily. Year on year, I've found the need to challenge myself, and I do this partly because I enjoy the adventure and being outside. I like testing my limits to see if I can break down my comfort zone barrier. I know it's healthy for me to do this, and generally it's getting me out and about. I also do this because I found a need for a focus, and I respond well to the ticking off of a job or challenge on a list, counting down days or working towards something with a training plan. Deadline focused, using just a simple star chart in the way a lot of students do at school might track the progress, and I often use something very similar because it feels good. What else feels good is that year after year I've shared stories of my adventures and have received feedback from individuals who were in the audience, that I've inspired them to have a go, to try something new, or to go out and do that thing that they have been just putting off for so long. In 2019, I launched my new venture, HeadRightOut, which aims to inspire others to head out of their comfort zone and thus hopefully encourage greater resilience. Mental toughness, it shouldn't be underestimated. Being strong in outdoor adventure scenarios will be a transferable skill into your day-to-day life, I promise you that, because I've witnessed it firsthand, and I was a scaredy cat with so many things, and I still am, I'll be honest. So as part of my new mission, I embarked on my self-made challenge, 100 scary days, doing something scary for 100 consecutive days. This could be something simple like putting your hand up in class, like telling somebody that you disagree with them, that can be really hard, or something more tricky like jumping out of an aeroplane. I did things like learning to put my head underwater, doing the crow yoga pose. That meant I was only balancing on my hands and my head was leaning forward, and climbing a scaffold ladder to the top and onto the scaffold platform. I rode on the back of a motorbike pillion, and I skinned a pheasant and filleted a trout. What else did I do? Oh, my 100th, that still hasn't happened yet. Funnily enough, it is actually a skydive, so I will be jumping out of an aeroplane, despite my fear of heights. So this is the third HeadRightOut 100 challenge I've done, and I believe that taking on a commitment to try something, anything, for 100 days, either back to back or, you know, dotted around, is great for maintaining focus and forming good habits. And if you wanted to try something smaller, you could try 50 scary days or 21 scary days. Or you might want to adapt the HeadRightOut 100 to use for something else. It doesn't have to be scary days. My previous hundreds, what were they? It was 100 happy days, finding something to be grateful for over 100 days, and that was back to back. And 100 Mappy days, that was 100 days of different walks using a map or a map app. You could do anything. Just think, you could have 100 sporty days, you could have 100 stretchy days, 100 booky days, 100 fresh air days, 100 walky days. I don't know, the possibilities are endless. Build up to the bigger things by starting off with small baby steps, and see it as a kind of micro bravery. Find the courage to do those little tasks or events that you'd normally avoid, and gently work yourself towards doing the scariest stuff. It's like a couch to 5k for micro bravery. My current challenge had to be lockdown proof, so I've embarked on walking my local canal, bagging bridges. My bridge bagging challenge is unlikely to be completed this year. However, as the criteria is that I walk from the same place each time and I head off to a bridge and then back again, it's going to build up the miles. Now, some days I might walk 4 miles, other days I might walk 8 or 10. It purely depends, obviously, on how far away the bridge is. Now, the canal is only 35 miles long. That's not going to take long, you're probably saying. In fact, by the time I have finished this challenge, walking backwards and forwards to each bridge in turn will see me complete, let me get this right, 3,412 miles in total from a 35-mile stretch of canal. Doesn't seem possible. It's pretty lockdown proof, as I'm only ever walking from home, and I'll save the longer walks, I think, until the lighter summer days and nights. The longest day being 44 miles. It'll be tough and it's a challenge, but it is doable. Fred DeVito's quote sticks with me here. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. I've also heard Sarah Williams use this quote on Tough Girl Challenges and a Tough Girl podcast. Don't fear failure. Fear being in exactly the same place this time next year. You have got to have new experiences, and you've got to make mistakes and get things wrong in order to be able to move on to progress. It's all part of the process. So transporting you back to my tent on the southwest coast path, I could no longer avoid the inevitable visit out into the unknown. I finally ventured out into that other world, and as I unzipped the tent door, I gasped. There was no one out there. Actually, it revealed an inky black sky decorated with more stars than I had ever seen. It was stunning. Truly facing my fears, and aside from creating a real physical sense of relief, I encountered the life-changing experience of peeing with a view. And realising in both awe and acceptance that I should have actually stepped out of the tent not just sooner, but years ago. I hope you all make the brave move to step out of your tent sooner rather than later. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Go on, head right out. Go and do something that scares you every day. Let me know how you get on.